Hey everyone! Welcome back to another episode of Oops and Giggles, your go-to podcast for all things fun, strange, and downright hilarious. Today's episode is Giggle-Worthy History. We're talking about some of the most amusing mishaps in history. Ever heard of a war against birds? Or a prank that embarrassed the British Navy? How about a food powder that won an election? Stick around because we're diving into all that and more. Let's start in 1932 Australia, a land of deadly snakes, terrifying spiders, and battle-hardened emus. Here's the deal. During the Great Depression, Australian farmers in Western Australia had a big problem. Thousands of emus. Yes, those big flightless birds were destroying their wheat crops. Naturally, they turned to the government for help, and the government responded by deploying the military. Armed with machine guns, soldiers were sent to wage war on these birds. What could possibly go wrong? Everything, as it turns out. Emus are fast, coordinated, and surprisingly clever. They'd scatter as soon as the soldiers got close, making it nearly impossible to aim. After thousands of rounds of ammunition and only about a dozen birds killed, the soldiers retreated in defeat. The press had a field day calling it the Great Emu War. And yes, the emus won. Farmers had to build fences to protect their crops instead. This story reminds us, sometimes nature has the upper hand. For more on this, check out sources like ABC Australia and Fact Republic. Their deep dives are as hilarious as the story itself. Now let's jump to 1910 and one of the most legendary pranks of all time. The Dreadnought Hoax. A group of cheeky pranksters led by Horace de Vere-Cole, including none other than author Virginia Woolf, decided to fool the British Navy. They dressed up as Abyssinian royalty with fake beards and robes. Their goal? To visit the HMS Dreadnought, Britain's most advanced warship. They faked letters of introduction and were welcomed aboard with full honors. The crew even gave them a guided tour. And to top it off, the group pretended to speak in a made-up language, shouting "Bunga, Bunga" at everything they found impressive. The Navy didn't realize they'd been duped until the pranksters leaked the story to the press. The public loved it. The Navy, not so much. This hoax is a reminder that sometimes wit can outsmart even the strongest defenses. Look up the Strand Magazine of History Extra for more details. It's a goldmine of absurdity. Finally, let's travel to Ecuador in 1967. Here's a marketing stunt gone hilariously wrong or hilariously right, depending on your perspective. Pulvapies, a food powder brand, ran a campaign with the slogan, Vote for Pulvapies for mayor. It was meant to be a joke, but in one town, voters actually wrote Pulvapies on their ballots. When the votes were counted, Pulvapies had won the mayoral election. The people had spoken, food powder for mayor. While the incident was treated as a lighthearted mistake, it's a great example of how satire can spiral into reality. For a more detailed account, Mental Floss and Fact Republic have some great articles on this. And also, I hope I read this correctly. Pulvapies. If you want to correct me, comment down below. Let's head to the Netherlands. In the early 1600s, where people lost their minds over tulips. During what's now known as Tulip Mania, tulip became a symbol of wealth and status. Prices skyrocketed to absurd levels. Rare tulip bulbs were worth more than houses. But here's the kicker. The market was built entirely on speculation. People weren't buying tulips because they loved flowers. They bought them hoping to sell at a higher price. When buyers suddenly stopped paying outrageous sums, the bubble popped. Fortunes were lost overnight. The whole fiasco became one of history's funniest and most bizarre economic blunders. This story is a classic cautionary tale about trends gone wild. Check out Smithsonian Magazine or Charles Mackay's Extraordinary Popular Delusions and the Madness of Crowds for more juicy details. Speaking of over-the-top moments, let's talk about Napoleon Bonaparte. Yes, the same Napoleon who conquered half of Europe. In 1807, after signing the Treaty of Tilsit, Napoleon decided to celebrate with a rabbit hunt. But there was a tiny problem. His staff didn't gather wild rabbits. Instead, they bought tame ones. When Napoleon and his hunting party released the rabbits, instead of running away, the bunnies charged at him. Why? Tame rabbits associate humans with food. Instead of fleeing, they thought Napoleon was there to feed them. He ended up retreating in a flurry of rabbits. Imagine one of history's greatest generals being overrun by fluffy little invaders. You can find more on this in Paul Johnson's Napoleon, a life or articles on History Today. It's one of history's most unexpectedly adorable anecdotes. Finally, let's talk about Victor Lustig, one of history's most charming con artists. In 1925, Lustig posed as a government official and claimed the Eiffel Tower was too expensive to maintain. He convinced a group of scrap metal dealers that the iconic tower was being sold for parts. Here's the kicker. Lustig sold the Eiffel Tower twice. The first time, his buyer was too embarrassed to report the scam. The second time, Lustig's con unraveled when a buyer tipped off the police. Despite this, Lustig continued to pull off daring scams, earning him a reputation as one of the most creative swindlers in history. For more, check out Smithsonian Magazine or Robert Greene's The 48 Laws of Power. This story is one for the ages. And there you have it. 5 giggle-worthy moments that prove history is stranger and often funnier than fiction. Whether it's battle against birds, rabbit invasion, or selling landmarks, history is full of surprises. Thank you for tuning in to Oops and Giggles. I'll be back next week with even more tales of mishaps, blunders, and unexpected hilarity. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to leave a review and share it with your friends. Until next time, stay curious, keep laughing, and remember, even history's greatest figures had their oops moments. Bye!
Oh yeah!